We interrupt our program to bring you a special broadcast.
Boom! Headshot!
Hey, it's Clay. Welcome to another League of Legends video. This is a why buy focusing on Lux, the Lady of Luminosity. She is a ranged mage champion, scales pretty heavily off of AP, has quite a bit of utility as well. I would say she's most commonly played in the mid lane, but can also work well as a support if you so desire. So this game was actually a pretty interesting game. I think it pretty well shows off Lux's gameplay style. She definitely works well in the mid lane. It's a very safe choice, I would say, just because one of her greatest strengths is that she has tremendous range. She can definitely farm from a distance quite easily. She's definitely a fun champion to play. I would say she's definitely a strong... she could be considered one of the best AP snipers, just because of the way that her range works, especially with her ultimate. That Final Spark has such incredibly long range and is just very, very potent for a long-range skill shot. So she definitely works well for that. But she also offers her team a ton of utility. So I would say her range and her utility are definitely the things that really stand out about Lux. In this game, I'm going to be laning against a Syndra, missing my first creep there, so GG, surrender at 20. Game is lost. But I thought this was a pretty good example of Lux's gameplay style. See a bit of harassment right there. But let's go ahead and start talking about her builds and her skills and abilities and how they all work together so that it can make more sense as I use them. Her passive, Illumination Flare, any of her abilities, basically her Q or her E, if you land it, you can see all of these minions and Syndra all have a little bit of, it's gone now, but they had a little flare of light over top of them. It's going to happen, basically once you land one of Lux's spells, the target becomes illuminated, and then if you would auto-attack them or use the Final Spark, it will consume that and then deal extra damage based on their levels. So the idea here is that if you use one of your abilities on a minion or on an enemy champion, that if you auto-attack them immediately afterwards, you will deal bonus damage. So quite a nice ability. Lux has fairly long cooldowns. See, I'm getting chunked down here by Syndra. Lux has fairly long cooldowns. You can see all these minions here have this little light hanging above their head. That means that they have that debuff and are ready for me to go ahead and pick them up with my passive. I would say it's mostly useful for getting a little bit extra harassment off in lane, and also it's very helpful for last hitting, I would say, just because as an AP, she doesn't have a lot of AD, so last hitting can be a bit of a trick, but it doesn't necessarily scale as well into the mid game. You can see landing a nice binding there, following it up with my E and my passive, getting that nice chunk of damage off onto Syndra. Can we get this? Going to throw out my shield there. He's going to flash. And I'm going to throw down my E, and she actually flashes over the wall to safety. So nice play there by Syndra. Let's talk about her Q, because I used that there. That is the light binding. This is one of her more iconic abilities. Basically, it is a lined skill shot, and it will root the first two enemies that it finds. So very, very nice for its utility. Having a root is always a fantastic, nice choice to have. A little bit extra CC on your mage goes a long ways. And it actually, like I said, it will root and damage two of the enemies in its path. It will strike the first one and deal its maximum amount of damage, and then the second one will deal a little bit less damage, and the root is also 1 second less. So you can see I missed it right there on that cannon creep, and I land my E and my passive, and she's going to get away safely. Running a little low on mana at this point, but so the Q is definitely your best initiation tool. It sets up your combo. You use it a lot for the CC. I would say you probably want to max this ability second, just because your E is a little bit better for a damage spell. But the utility that it offers is quite nice. Those fantastic Lux light bindings can be really, really clutch. Scales really well into late game, just because it not only does damage, but it also brings that nice CC. I believe it has a fairly high AP ratio too, of 0.7. So very, very nice stuff there from Lux. I do see Zach here in the top lane, and I'm just going to let him chill there, trying to waste his time a little bit. Syndra's going for the stun, and she's going to get it, but I see Zach, and I'm going to get a nice light binding there onto Syndra to stop any of that aggression. So basically, that's the Q. It's your best CC ability. You can use it for farming, but I would say it's mostly used for its utility. Next is her W, her Prismatic Barrier. This is a basic shield ability. She sends it out in a lined skill shot, and then any it will shield herself, and then any ally that it will pass through will also gain the shield, and then it will also travel back from that line skill shot, and it will refresh that shield. So very, very nice. Again, this is one of the things that helps her to be a nice support, and it also gives her tremendous utility, just because late game you can shield your entire enemy team, or you can shield your entire allied team. If you're in a team fight, you can just throw it out. You can use it to save people's lives if they're getting really low. It's just really nice and handy to have this type of a shield. It doesn't have the best AP scaling. I believe it's a 0.35 ratio. So not the best AP scaling, but it still is a very nice thing to have in her kit. You're probably going to want to max this last, just because if you're playing in the mid lane, you're looking for more of a damage build. If you're playing her as more of a support, you probably are going to want to max it first, just to get that base shield up. Maybe first or second, I would say, is probably the best choice. Next up is her E. I just threw it out right there. This is her Lucent Singularity. Basically, she will throw out a medium circle-sized ball of light. You can use it right there to farm those minions. And what will happen is you will throw it out. It will create a zone which will slow enemies, and then you can cast E again to detonate it and deal the magic damage. So it's very similar to a Gragas barrel, if you're familiar with how Gragas's mechanics work. Basically, you throw it out, and then when it lands, you have to hit the E button again in order to detonate it and deal the damage. So it's her primary damage tool. It has really nice AoE damage with it. It's just a very handy spell. You can see using it right there to get some nice harassment. It has tremendously long range. Both of her base spells have tremendous long range. I believe her Q has a range of 1,000, and her E has a range of 1,100. So very, very long-ranged abilities right here. It's your best skill for wave clear. It's your best skill for harassment, your best skill for damage. And the slow that comes with it is also very nice. Again, making her a nice... you see using my E and then my R right there to get the kill. But the E is really nice. It will, like I said, it will apply your passive. The Q and the E will apply your passive, so you can use it for those purposes as well. And the wave clear is also really nice. Then lastly, her ultimate, I actually just used it right there to get the kill. It's your final spark. Basically, it is a lined skill shot that has tremendously long range. I believe it's 3,000 range, so one of the longest range spells in the game. And it will deal a tremendous amount of magic damage in line. Just very, very strong damaging ability. Has a relatively short cooldown for an ultimate. I believe it is 80, 65, and 50 seconds, and it even was shorter before it got a bit of a nerf. I believe it was 40 seconds at one point. So with max cooldown, I believe it gets down to about 30 seconds. So having your ulti every 30 seconds is very, very nice. I pretty much spam it every time it's on cooldown. You can see I used it in the last fight, and it's already up again. And it's just such a tremendously nice ability. It's your main finishing ability. It will consume the your passive to deal that little bit of extra damage. If you get the full combo off of your QEW, I'm sorry, your QER, it will consume the passive there. So very, very nice for that extra bit of damage. And you can get some really clutch snipes with this too. If you roam, if you're going to go help your teammates out in a battle, it's a really, really handy ability just for getting those long-range snipes. And again, it just really emphasizes her long-range nature and her ability to just act as kind of a sniper who sits in the back line and deals tremendous damage. So those are her abilities. She has tremendous CC and utility. Her Q is a nice root. Her E has a slow. Her W grants a shield. And then her passive and her ulti are more about dealing damage in coordination with those spells. So during the laning phase, you want to stay relatively safe and just kind of chill out in the back line. Utilize the range to your advantage. She can farm very, very nicely. You're probably going to pick up an early mana item like a Chalice of Harmony, which is what I believe I picked up here. Maybe turn into Athene's. You could also maybe go for an early Morellonomicon, which would be a really nice choice. Lux benefits definitely from mana and also CDR, which both of those items provide when it turns into the Athene's and Holy Grail. Both those statistics are very, very core on Lux. You definitely want to get some cooldown reduction, some AP, and some mana just to help you spam your abilities as often as you want. But she definitely works well and can just be very useful in a variety of situations. In her basic combo in lane, if you can land it, is if you want to start off with your Q, that's your main source of damage, so you can lock them down and get that root. If they're coming for a gank, Lux is fantastic lane to gank for, because she can get those Qs down and set up those ganks very nicely with that CC. It's a little bit of a tricky skill shot to land just because it will hit minions if they're in the way, so you need to make sure you get a clear shot. It is a skill shot, so if you're not good with skill shots, it's also something to keep in mind. But the CC is definitely undeniably strong that it offers. Then once you land your Q, then you want to throw out your E because it's going to, pretty much guaranteed land, and then detonate it almost immediately. And then lastly want to throw out your ultimate on top of it. That's your main damage combo. It has actually a surprising amount of burst damage. And it can really, really allow you to play very strong. You can see right here, landing a nice Q, E, R, getting her very, very low, and she actually flashes away with just a sliver of health. How low was she actually? Less than 100 HP, so a bit unlucky right there. But that was the basic combo right there. You can see starting off with the Q, E, and then detonating the E while you hit R and are charging up your laser. You want to throw out your detonate your E and deal maximum amounts of damage. So very, very nice combo there from Lux. And like I said, she definitely benefits from CDR so that you can get to the point where you can really spam those spells. There's a nice Q onto Zac to really make sure he does not dive anymore onto Warwick. But very, very nice, straightforward combo of abilities right there. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. In terms of her playstyle, though, you'd really want to abuse her long range, especially in lane. As you can see, Warwick going way deep in here, which is definitely a little bit too soon. You definitely want to abuse her long range. You want to make sure that you're staying in the back, you're staying safe. I would say that Lux is a champion who really benefits from positioning in a very safe positioning. She's definitely a very safe champion. Because like I said, all of her skills, all of her damaging and utility abilities have at least 1,000 range, which is fairly tremendous. So you really want to abuse your range as much as you possibly can. And it makes her a very nice counter to some more short-range mages, like maybe a Ryze or a Cassiopeia. Just because, for them to get in range, they have to get into your wheelhouse, but you can harass them, where they can't get back at you. So she's kind of like the Caitlyn version of an AP mid, to make a bit of a comparison there with 80 carries. But, especially with her ulti, too, that gives her absolutely fantastic range. And that's definitely something to keep in mind, too, is that you want to use her ult. It is on such a low cooldown that there's almost no reason not to use it quite frequently. Just because it is on such a low cooldown that you want to use it quite often. But other than that, her E and her Q are definitely your main sources of damage, and it takes a little bit of getting used to. They're a little bit slower traveling skill shots, so it takes a little bit of getting used to. And also managing her passive. You can see right there using my E to get a bit of harassment and also get some damage off to those caster minions. But getting accustomed to her Q and her E is definitely a core part of playing Lux. You really want to know exactly what you're capable of. And you want to be able to land those consistently. That's probably a pretty big part of it, I would say. But other than that, I would say that Lux is very much dependent on cooldown reduction. That's another thing to note, is you really want to get that 40% CDR and hold it as often as you can. I find that when I'm playing with a more inexperienced jungler, I have a harder time getting a consistent blue buff. And I believe blue buff offers either 15 or 20% CDR, so a very significant amount right there. I usually get 4% CDR from my masteries, and then I get one 20% CDR item, like a Morellonomicon or maybe the Athene's Unholy Grail. And then from there, it just depends. If you're getting a lot of blue buffs, you can see right here, you're going to blow up this Taric with a nice QER combo. But getting that 20% CDR is really, really important on Lux. I would say much more so than a lot of other AP mids, just because her basic abilities have a little bit of a longer cooldown. As we're going in here onto this Syndra, I'm going to throw out my shield to try to protect this Draven and help pick up this kill onto Zac. So nice job there, helping to pick up some of those kills. But her basic cooldowns are a little bit longer. Her Q has a 15 to 11 second cooldown, and her E has a 10 second cooldown. So a bit of a longer cooldown there on her basic abilities. But with some CDR, you can get it down to about 6 seconds or so. And then, like I said, her ulti at max rank goes from 50 seconds down to about 30. So you really, really benefit from cooldown reduction. I would say in general, cooldown reduction is much more beneficial to champions. You can say using my ulti there to wave clear, but CDR is beneficial to champions with cooldowns in kind of that 10 to 15 second range, just because it really allows you to you get a bigger payoff rather than if you use a 4 second cooldown spell and you get 20% CDR or 40% CDR, it's not going to, it goes from about 4 seconds down to about 2.5. So you're only getting a 1.5 second reduction. But, if you have a 12-second cooldown, it goes down to much, much lower, more along the lines of about 6 or 7 seconds, where you're getting about 5 seconds reduction. So, like I said, Lux definitely benefits from CDR. Then after that, I would say you really want to focus, once you get your CDR situation in order, like I said, if you can consistently get blue buffs, then only build one CDR item. If you cannot, then maybe consider another one. So if you get 4% from your masteries, then maybe do, get the Morellonomicon for another 20. Then maybe something like a Deathfire Grasp is not a bad choice to get another, I believe it's 10% CDR to get you to about like 35 or something like that. That'll definitely get you a long ways. But if you can't, if you can't get those blue buffs consistently, I would definitely think a second CDR item would be worth considering, just because it is so helpful for Lux. But because you really want to spam those spells as much as you can. So you need the mana, you need the CDR. And then after that, you want to build almost straight AP. A Void Staff, I can't believe Rebeden's Death Cap, definitely very, very core items on Lux. She's definitely a mage that you need to build a lot of damage on. There's almost no reason to build a lot of defense on Lux, just because she is so long range that there is very little incentive, because you never should really be in danger. She's a good candidate for a Magi's, even if you're not. I don't build Magi's unless it's in a situation where you can see Draven and I are getting caught out here, and he is left for dead. See ya, buddy. But I generally don't build Magi's unless I'm in kind of a troll game against clearly worst skilled players. But with a champion like Lux, because she has so much range, you can get away with something like a Magi's, just because you should not be dying, is kind of my point. Lux is, because of her range, because of her tremendous range, you should really not be dying very frequently. So use your Lux to your advantage. Use your range to your advantage. Use your range to keep yourself safe. Use your range to get your damage in. Get a little bit of CDR, and then in a mana item as well. And then once you get that in place, make sure you are just stacking AP. So Rabadans, Death Cap, maybe even Azonias if they're a heavy AD team. Deathfire Grasp is not a bad choice, although it's not necessarily a great choice, just because Lux is very much not someone to be in close range to use the active. But other than that, you see right here, throwing out a nice Q, gonna help. Actually, I did not. Draven got caught out, but I get a nice assist there onto Taric. Gonna help clear this wave. But Lux is, like I said, very much a champion who sits in the back, tries to stay safe, and she's definitely more of a support mage rather than just a hardcore heavy burst mage, who's all about dealing damage. Something like a Brand or maybe a Rise. Those are definitely mages who are more focused on dealing tons of damage with their skill ability combos. Lux is a little bit more of a support style mage, because she has so much CC, because she can do so many different things with the root, with the shield, with the slow. It's more about making sure that you're using her abilities to really affect your team in a positive way. And she does have low cooldowns as well. I know I've mentioned that before, but really take advantage of that. Don't be afraid to spam your ulti. So at this point in the game, let's go ahead and take a look at where things are at. My team has definitely been doing quite well. I have 190 CS. She's a very strong farmer. 2-0-4. Finished my Death Cap and my Athenes. So definitely have the core of my build going on, which is definitely doing wonders for me right now. If you contrast that with Syndra, she's got 180 CS, but 1, 2, and 3. So I've definitely managed to keep myself much more safe. And that's kind of the name of the game. Right here in this fight, gonna throw out a Q. There's my ulti. I got 3 members of the enemy team in that ultimate, which is gonna keep them all very, very low. Gonna throw my Ether to pick up the kill onto Zac. A really, really nicely timed combo right there. I was really able to help set up things for my team. Gonna throw out my shield just to help my team out. Throw out an E and get them nice and slow. Slowed and weak, getting a nice binding there onto that Aurelia to make sure that she didn't get quite enough damage in to finish off my teammates. That was a really good teamfight example, I would say. Let's go ahead and actually watch that one more time, because there was so much going on. This was kind of the deciding teamfight in this game. Come on, it's getting a little bit laggy. Okay, so here we go. Let's pick this up. Now, my main focus right here is to land some Qs, followed up with an E, throw out my shield whenever I can, and if I can get multiple members of the enemy team into my ulti, if they all line up nicely, you really want to try to do that. One thing about these normal games, when there isn't so much team coordination, is that generally your opponents will line up together. So using my E for some poke, very, very nice. There's the Q and the ulti. And gonna get, you can see I got all 3 of them into my ultimate, which is very, very huge. Just a very crucial part of playing Lux in this late game situation. There's another nice Q onto this Aurelia. Just continuing to use my spells on cooldown. There's my E to get the slow off. Gonna throw out this shield and get the Q and help pick up that last kill onto Aurelia. So another very nice team fight. That was definitely what you want to be doing as Lux, is allowing your abilities to support your team from afar, from a very safe vantage point where you're not really putting yourself into harm's way. Allowing your CDR and your damage to really take over, to use your spells as much as you can. But got a nice surrender, finished up 203 CS, led the game in creep scores, 3-0-7. I would say that is a fairly typical score for Lux. She's not a champion who's really going to rake in the kills. Her cooldowns are a little bit too long for that. But definitely the 7 assists is definitely very telling. She is a bit more of that supporting style AP mid, but definitely still very potent, but very, very safe. I think the 0 deaths is very, very telling of her gameplay style. But that's all I have. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Lux is a fantastic AP mid, a lot of utility, a lot of long-range poke, kind of that sniper style, but very, very fun to play as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll see you again soon. Bye.